And I just wanted to share with you a couple of ways that I introduce Scratch to my students in elementary school. And I like to compare Scratch to a theatrical performance because there's a lot of similarities. So the environment here is set up into different sections. And so this section here, Scratch, the program calls the stage. And I like to tell the students that this is where all the action in their animation or their game is going to happen. And really, this is the only area that the end user or the person playing the game would see. They're not going to see any of this other space. Down here we have the characters in the play, or as Scratch calls them, the sprites. And right now we have one sprite. It's actually Scratch the cat. And you don't have to have Scratch the cat. You can have different characters. So for example, if I wanted to get rid of Scratch the cat, I could come up here to these scissors, click on the scissors, and then click on Scratch. But now I have no sprites. So to get a new sprite, I can come here to this little alien button that says Choose Sprite. And I've got lots of choices. I'm going to look at space, and I'm going to bring in the earth, and I can say OK. And know that your game or your animation can have many sprites. But for right now, I'm going to have two characters in my animation. So I have the earth and the sun, and those are my two sprites. Also know that some characters or sprites have multiple costumes. So if I were to click here and I would see more costumes down here, you would know that there were different costumes you could switch to, which is an effective way to show animation sometimes. But that's a little bit more of an advanced thing. But I just wanted to point out that there are costumes. Also on the stage, right now we have an empty backdrop, and I always like to talk to the kids like the backdrop is like your scenery. So right now we have nothing. So I could come here to the new backdrop icon, which is like that mountain, click on it, and choose a backdrop for my story or my animation or my game. So right now we've got the stage. We've got a backdrop. We've got some characters called sprites. And in the other areas of Scratch, let me click back on my sprite here, I have the script. And the script is a fancy name for the code. And each sprite will have its own script. So for example, if I were to pull this movement block out for the earth, I could look at the sun script now and see that there's nothing there. So you can switch back and forth and give each character their own script. Okay? Just like in a play, every character would have their own lines. So right now I've got the earth. And this is a good time for me to point out that yes, this is the area where the script goes, and that this is your coding blocks. And I love the way Scratch organizes them in categories by color. So you can start, depending on the age of your students, asking them, where do you think I would find a block that would make my sprite look like he's jumping? So, hopefully they would say, well, that would be a movement, so it would be in the motion block. So they start to make predictions based on, the type of action it's taking as to what color they should click on to try to find the block. Lastly, one important set of blocks is called the event blocks, and that's really what you need to get your code to work. It's kind of equivalent to the run button or enter button on a program. So you need one of these to get your code to happen over here. So this is a popular one, the green flag. When clicked, I'm asking it to turn 15 degrees. So let's go ahead and click that green flag, and you can just see that that was just a little rotation. And if I wanted it to maybe do that on its own and repeat, and maybe I want it to repeat 100 times and see what that will do. Okay, I've got a spinning earth, and probably, not rotating the way it should be, but you get the idea of adding motion and animation to your sprites. One last thing before I go, I want to point out when I'm introducing Scratch, a lot of the times, see this little teeny tiny question mark over here on the right? If I click on it, these are some awesome tutorials. They take about 20 to 30 minutes each for students, and it walks them through how to do a specific skill. And so this is actually how I started to build my repertoire and learn how to do certain things and what Scratch was capable of, because it does walk you right through and tells you what code, and then you just start to get like used to the environment and the different pieces of code you could use. So I highly recommend, especially for free time and such, that you consider using these to orient your students to Scratch. Thank you